Hey guys, and welcome to my vlog. So this week we're going to be talking about diversity and representation in world building. Now, I'm just going to start this topic off by saying diversity is realistic. Unless you've created a boring, bubble-wrapped, homogeneous world, there is no excuse to not have a diverse population of characters. That being said, because this is fantasy, you also don't need to have racism, homophobia, etc. We're in a fantasy world and we are not reliant on real-world history. Please do not fall back on the whole, this is just the way it was back then. There is no back then. This is fantasy. And real-world history does not control how people are treated. Be better than that. Remember that melanin levels are influenced by proximity to the equator. The closer you are, the darker your skin's going to be. So keep this in mind with how you've arranged your geography and your climate and where your story is going to be taking place. Also, unless your story is taking place on an island in the middle of nowhere that no one has ever been to except that one group of people, there's going to be mixing. People travel, they follow trade routes, they immigrate to more fertile land, they flee war, etc. There are lots of reasons for people to move from one spot to the other and mix with new populations. It is completely realistic for you to have a story with people who have lots of different skin colors and cultures and religions. Pick whatever reason works best for you, but there's really no excuse to avoid it. This also applies to mythical races. If you're going to be having humanoid species, remember that they're also not going to be homogeneous. The melanin levels of these groups are probably going to follow the exact same pattern as people. It's all about exposure to sun and proximity to your world's equator. Diversity isn't scary, so don't make excuses to avoid it because everyone is tired of pasty white elves and halflings. Mix it up a little. You can obviously have some white ones, because white people exist too, but people are gonna side-eye you pretty hard if that's all there is. You can have lots of fun incorporating these different fantasy groups without being exclusionary. The options for sentient humanoid species are literally too numerous for me to list, so you're best off doing your own research to find out what is most applicable to your story. You can even create your own if that's something you want to do. This is fantasy and we are not limited to what already exists. If you are taking mythological creatures from cultures that are not your own, please be sensitive about this. Don't write carelessly or at all about things that are sacred to other people if you are not a part of that group. Folklore is alive and well in many cultures, so you need to keep that in mind if you're cherry picking from different sources. Disability in fantasy is so often neglected, but guess what? Including that is realistic too. Disabilities of all varieties are so common that if you think none of them exist in your world, then you are kidding yourself. If you really, really, really don't want to have disabilities of any kind in your world, then you had better have a reason for why they don't exist. Is magical healing so advanced that it can heal literally anything? Well, that's up to you, but keep in mind that people are probably not going to worry about your characters because you've just eliminated all of the stakes. They're never in danger. If you've been following this series, then you know that I've talked about disability and mental health in a previous video, which I will also link below. And please don't be afraid to include mobility devices, medication, etc., because they're not a modern invention. They have existed in all forms throughout history, and they can exist in your fantasy world too. You just need to come at these things with respect. One thing to consider in addition to this is that it is very, very common to write a magical disabled character. Like a blind character cannot see the world around them, but they can see the future. Disabled characters don't need to be magical in order to exist. Another thing to consider is that marginalized people travel in groups. The token gay makes no sense to literally anyone that's part of the queer community. Even if you're eliminating homophobia and racism, etc., it's still very unlikely to have only one person of a marginalized group because, as they say, birds of a feather flock together, and people want to hang out with people with whom they have things in common. A lot of time, queer people are drawn to other queer people without even knowing their identities, and it's a thing you find out later. And while we're on the topic, another thing to keep an eye out for is to make sure you are not inappropriately coding your villains. Many villains in media are queer-coded, Jewish-coded, color-coded, etc. And it's so prevalent that it is very easy to fall into that patterns if you're not aware of it. Are your villains flamboyant? Do they have dark skin? Are they disfigured somehow? Do they have features that are typically compared to Jewish people? And congrats, you've fallen victim to this terrible societal pattern. Good news, you can fix it, so check yourself before you wreck yourself. Be aware of what is sneaking into your writing, and do your best to combat unconscious bias. Everyone has unconscious bias. You, me, literally everyone. And white people are especially bad for this. It comes as a part of the society that we grow up in. And it is your job to work on personal growth and overcome it as much as you possibly can. Writing is a job, and you don't get to excuse shitty representation because you didn't know something was bad. Do your research. Do your due diligence. Have diverse beta readers. Have sensitivity readers. And don't allow yourself to be lazy with this. You have to try. You owe it to yourself and your readers to do better. As a final note on this topic, now that you've created your wonderful diverse characters, please don't kill them and leave the white straight ones standing. Do not bury your gays. Do not have your black characters be the first to die. Just don't. The people in these communities are tired of seeing themselves on the page only to have those characters killed off. Diverse characters can exist without being a tragedy. It can be hard work to do accurate diversity and representation, but you know what else is hard? Writing a book. You can do this. Just do your best and be respectful. So, that is all I've got for you guys on this topic. Thank you so much for watching. All my social media links will be down in the description below, and I will see you guys next week with another video. Bye!